Thank you everyone for coming to join us. I get the honor of introducing Mario Mendzoa Jr. I was fortunate enough to run with Mario in college at UC Davis. He is a 4-time USATF Trail Runner of the Year, a 5 times USATF Trail Running National Champion, a 6-time member of the USA Trail Mountain Ultra Running Team. He is also the 50K treadmill world record holder, which he set not too long ago. And he has lots and lots of other race accomplishments, numerous top 3 podium finishes. So we are very lucky to have him with us today. Mario, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We are very excited to learn about trail running from you.
Awesome. Thank you, Eva, and thank you, Nathan. I'm honored to be here and excited that we still get to do this. I know that originally we were thinking maybe I could come out at some point, and maybe in the future I will be able to come out and just check out some of your guys' trails. But this is a good start, and I'm excited.
We would love to have you come visit South Dakota when it's safe, see the trails on our side of the state, and more trails on the western side of the state. They just canceled the big Black Hills 50, 100-miler scheduled for next month. So maybe next year all of those races will happen and you'll get to come run those.
That would be cool. That would be awesome.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. I think one of the big questions people have is, how did you get into ultra running?
Yeah, I came to Bend. It was actually kind of a fluke. I had one of my best friends say that he was thinking about moving out here, and he wanted me to come and check it out for him because he already had a family. So he was like, "Hey, can you just go out for like 2 or 3 months and let me know if it's a good place to live?" And I came out to Bend and just could not believe the amount of trails that there was here, and just the mountain ranges and the water and nature. And I'll be completely honest, it was like, how am I still running on the road or on track? I was just like, this is just phenomenal. Like, I just really could not stop running trails as soon as I got here, and I just loved it. So I spent about 2 years first in my trail running career trying to get faster, because I was kind of a late bloomer. I started running pretty late in my years, and so I felt like towards my junior, senior year of college, I got a lot better, and I was still sort of in that same trajectory. And so that was my focus the first 2 years out of college, was just to keep getting faster before I committed to longer races. But then once I felt like I figured that out, I was very intrigued by the ultras, and I started with the 50K. I did 3 50Ks before I did my first 50-mile, and I'm one of those rare guys that has just done a very gradual progression, one distance at a time until I got to the 100. So I've taken my time, I guess I could say.
Not what a lot of people do. Sometimes it's just a jump from a marathon to 100 from some of the trail runners I know out here. How did your training change as you increased your distance, and not just for training but for racing?
One of the things that was big for me was understanding that you could do some back-to-back long runs and still get a lot of that same accumulated fatigue that you would feel in an ultra. And so, that was a new thing for me, because I thought, well, if I'm training for 100K, I obviously can't go and run 100K at once, because that would just destroy me. So, I discovered that a few back-to-back 20 miles, maybe 25 miles, that was enough just to prepare my body to know how to keep moving when it's beat up and just tired. And so that was the big thing. I actually started incorporating more long runs, and trying to get used to fueling, because in shorter races you don't really think about that stuff that much, but in longer races you're very concerned with, am I taking care of my body? Am I in a good rhythm? Is this something that I can maintain for many hours? And so those kind of things started to play in the role of my training. But I will say that there's a few key things that I still kept. I kept my tempo runs, and I did keep a little bit of interval work because I think the efficiency still makes a big difference in those long races.
Do you have any tips for individuals who maybe are running the shorter distance and are looking to move up to the ultra distances?
Absolutely. I would practice a few long run days where you just put on a pack, put a lot of fuel, and fill up the pack with some water and some gels and some waffles or something like that, and go out for 3 or 4 hours and don't rush it, and just practice moving, practice seeing like how your body goes in these cycles and these ups and downs. And I think that if you can get comfortable doing 2 or 3 of those runs, you'll get a good feel if you're gonna enjoy this new challenge. So I would always recommend the side of safety and preparation and patience for sure. Be very, very patient with your body, because I've met people that have rushed that process and they've gotten hurt, and then they can't run any races, right? So it's always better to be able to run something.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, rather than overtrain and get injured and not be able to do anything then for a long time.
Yeah, the more people can focus on just the joy of being outside, I think they'll realize that, a 3 or 4 hour run, it actually can go by pretty fast. And so that's what you want in these ultras. You want to be caught up in the moment, in where you're at, and you don't want to think, I still have 30 miles to go. You want to think, okay, right now I just am focusing on getting to the next aid station, and I'm going to enjoy this section of trail that I'm pushing myself in. Yeah.
You talked a lot about fueling. Can you share a little bit about what your fueling looks like and maybe the difference in a 50K versus a 100-miler?
Yes, I will say that in the 100-miler, I am very close to understanding it. And I would say the 2 that I've done, I still haven't fully gotten the best out of my body. So I did Rocky Raccoon, and I ran about 14 and change there. And then I did Western States, and I ran 18 hours there. And both of those races, I fell apart like the last 9 or 10 miles. And so I think like I'm very close. I think that'll be the next like race that I'll understand. So I will say that up to 100K, I feel pretty dialed. And what I do is I take at least 12 to 16 ounces of water, and I switch off between the water and Tailwind. There's a lot of other calorie drinks as well that are options if people want to try different ones, but I use Tailwind. I just really like it, and it's a way to include calories in an easy way to digest them. And for me, when I found out that there was something like this, it was like a game changer, because I used to always go like water or Gatorade, and Gatorade just it helps you be hydrated, but it doesn't have any calories, and you really need calories for these long races. So I tend to do about 12 to 16 ounces an hour when I'm getting into like the thick of an ultra, and then I tend to do about 300 to 400 calories per hour. And so about 200 calories might come from liquids, and then the other 200 or so will be like gels or waffles. I'll kind of nibble on stuff when I'm starting to get hungry. Um, I've I've found that if I can stay on top of my nutrition 2/3 of the ultra, the last third is where I can kind of slack off a little bit and I can get away with more. I can eat chips or whatever. But if I don't do well in the first 2/3, it kind of just throws everything off. It can throw my stomach off. It can throw my energy levels off. So I'm sure part of that is mental, but that's just what I've found, that the first 2/3 are very, very important. And in the 100 miler, I know that I need to eat a little bit more. So I'm hoping I can figure out how to get more stuff down and just better feel. So yeah.
You mentioned that in your 100 milers, you essentially fell apart near the end. What did you do to finish, or to struggle through and make it to the finish line?
Yeah, I think that one of the big changes in my career was when I started committing more to the fact that just finishing a race is pretty awesome. Like just getting through an ultra is amazing in itself. And so I actually, when I set up goals, I like to set up the first goal of just finishing. Like that's like my main goal, is like, how do I finish this thing? And so I've actually gone a few years without DNFing since I committed to that. And actually my last DNF was one race where my bag and all my stuff didn't show up. I was like actually racing abroad, and that was awful because I had to like piece together a bunch of stuff last minute, and then the nutrition didn't work and the shoes didn't work, all this stuff. But anyways, I just think that there's a beauty in that commitment to finishing, that it to me now it comes before how fast I run or how I perform. And so that is how I've gotten through some of those rough places, is that I just know internally I'm going to be so much happier if I finish. And I've basically told myself that unless like I'm super sick or I injure myself, that even if I have to walk, I'm going to keep going. And I think there's races that I've actually performed well when I've gotten into a hole and I've been able to get out of it. And so I just think that approach helps a lot in everything. Yeah. Yeah.
What does your training look like? Both the comparison in peak training when you're ready to compete and in the off season.
Off season, I really, really want to let my body and my mind reset. And so I tend to take off a lot of the intensity part of my training. And I still like to keep like a decent amount of miles, but I just won't have a set like workout plan or VO2. I won't do any VO2 max workouts or any tempo runs. And I'll be a lot more flexible. I'll kind of tend to run as much as I feel like that day and try to run in places that I'm just excited to go out and run. But when I'm in peak season, I will really try to get into a rhythm of hitting at least 2 or 3 hard days a week. And I try to get my body into a really good rhythm of recovery. That's actually when I know I'm ready, is just when I can do a good workout and in like 2 days I'm like feeling really good again and ready to go hard. And in the peak season, I also try to do a few more like just FKTs, like fastest known times, or try to PR on my segments that I'm trying to run. Like I'll pick some long hill climbs and I'll try to see if I can beat my best time there. And that usually tells me that like I'm ready, that I'm fit, and the excitement of wanting to feel that pain is usually like a sign for me that I'm ready to get out and race. Yeah.
All of the training you're mentioning that takes a lot of time. About how many hours a week or how many miles do you run in a week?
Right now, I am running the most I have in like 2 years. I'm hitting about 14 to 15 hours a week, which for me is quite a bit. I'm usually not a super high mileage guy, and I've been hitting about 90, 95, a couple 100-mile weeks, and that for me is pretty high. Some of the guys I run against, they're like in the 130s to 150, and I have a really full like busy schedule during the week, and so I just honestly don't have that kind of time. So I feel pretty comfortable with that 14, 15 hours. Um, but I will say, like last year, I was still racing pretty well, and I was doing about 11 to 12 hours. So I don't think like if for anyone that maybe is listening that wants to be like an elite like trail runner, I don't think you necessarily need to like train as much as some of the guys do. I just think you need the right ingredients. So for me, a good balance of sleep and eating well and making sure that I am taking care of my responsibilities at work and at home. That to me just provides a healthy environment for good training.
And we have another person asking, what other types of training do you do to supplement running?
It's a great question, and I actually don't do anything else. So,
strength training?
Yeah, so I do a little bit of core, and I started doing some strength training like squats, a little bit of band work, but honestly, that is about it. The thing that I do add is some hiking. Sometimes with my son and my wife, we'll go on a little extra hike, and just the weight of him is really good for some of those ultras where you're hiking for a long time. But I have noticed, and I've been curious about adding, some like cycling. A lot of trail runners do cycling. For me, it's really just a time thing. I'm sort of like, okay, if I do have an extra hour or two, at this point, I would rather run more. so so I just run more. But I think it's a personal thing. Like I think if a person really really enjoys also mountain biking, I think mountain biking can actually keep you healthy, and it can make you a good strong trail runner, especially with climbing. And so if you are that kind of person, I would actually say put in a few hours on that on a bike. I like simplicity. I like just putting on my shoes and going out the door and start running. So yeah.
It's pretty rare to hear an athlete say they don't strength train, you don't cross train, you don't do anything else. That was a very unexpected answer.
Sorry. I apologize. I let you guys down.
You used to do some snowshoeing in the winter, didn't you, for cross training?
So I only did that when the Nationals come to Bend. So it's like every maybe 3 or 4 years the snowshoe nationals come here, and so I suddenly become a snowshoe runner. So I've done snowshoe nationals the 2 times that they've been here, and so I was actually just joking about that. I was like, the next time they come back, I'm gonna come out of retirement and put on my snowshoes again. I have those like fast ones that go on your shoes, so they're pretty fun. Yeah.
A lot of the people listening that live around here, because we're in the snowshoe in the winter and cross country ski to do something different and utilize the winter weather here. So I think our listeners like hearing about snowshoeing. And we'll have to do it. You'll have to put your snowshoes back on.
Yeah. Yes.
You mentioned that you don't do a lot of other types of training based on time. Our listeners probably don't know all the different things you do, but you work, you're a husband, you're a new father, you're an elite trail runner, still running 100 miles a week, which takes up a lot of time. You volunteer. Can you talk a little bit about how you balance all of those things and how you find time to do all of that?
Yes, I will say that until about December of last year, I was having a very hard time with this actually. I even thought about giving up running just because things were getting pretty overwhelming. And just to me, it's really important to be there for my son and to be there for my wife. And so, since being a dad, things just really changed. And so, I really questioned, like, okay, is it time to give it up? I've had my fun with the trail running. I've enjoyed what I've done, and I am like at peace with it. And so I really did think about that a lot. But ultimately, it came down to this. It came down to the fact that I still love trail running. I really, really love how I'm able to connect when I'm doing it and how I feel connected to my surroundings. And for me, I'm a person of faith. So I really love what it does inside of me. And so a part of me feels like if I give that up right now, um, it could take away from what I'm able to give into the other things, and even just like the health of me being a dad and being a husband. So after a lot of reflection, I just felt like I do still want to do it, and maybe it'll be a time where I won't be competing, but I'll still want to keep running. So I think I might be one of those guys eventually. But right now, I just realized that I'm now 34, and I've got just a few more like peak years, and I just don't want to look back and be like, oh, I regret not just doing it a few more years and sticking with it and just seeing what I can do. So once I made that commitment, then I know it helps me. Then okay, I know I'm doing it. Now I just have to like plan it, and so from there, that helped me to figure out, okay, I'm putting in about 15 hours in running. I know that half the day I have my son. I know that my wife works part time. So once she's done working and I have my son, then we sort of switch. And so, like, that's when I usually do my run. And then I have finally time to do like stuff with work and stuff with ministry. I work a lot as a pastor too. Like on the weekends, I'll get to teach in a different church. And so I sort of put down a big list of the things that I was involved in, and I picked the top like 4 or 5, and I just said, I'm not gonna keep adding to this. I'm gonna stick to this, to what I know that is working and what I know that fuels my passion and where I am motivated, because that's a big thing. It's a big thing to have motivation for what you're doing. And so once I was able to take a look at that, I think the scheduling became easier and a routine became easier. I'll admit that coronavirus did throw a few wrenches in there, because all of a sudden my wife is working from home, and we had to figure out how to create this environment where she can work and my kid's not in the way. And so that was a little bit of a new adjustment, but it wasn't that bad. Once I made that commitment, which that might be the big thing for people, is like, okay, if you're like, I really love running and I'm going to stick with it, I think it's easier to set a schedule around that, and to perhaps have a conversation with those in your household, like, hey, I do want to do this, and so can we work together around it? So that's my advice.
Yeah, it sounds like you picked your priorities, and running is one of them, and you're still not that old. You have a lot more years left running really fast.
I know. I see some of these guys that, like, in the 100, they're just peaking at 40, 40, 44, 45. And I'm like, Okay, like I'm very intrigued by the 100. I just think it's such a awesome distance, and so yeah, who knows? I might keep sticking with it for a while.
Yes. Yeah, you should. Our listeners don't know your son is really young. He's not a year yet, is he?
He is. Yeah, he is now. Yeah, a year and a half.
A
Yeah.
year and a half now. So he has a young child at home. So that definitely changed things. Do you bring him running with you?
I do. I do a lot of stroller runs with him, and I found very quickly that strollers and trails do not do well together. So I've quickly found like crushed gravel roads, and that sometimes it's okay to run on the road a little bit. So yeah.
Yes, some of those adjustments you have to make, right? And to run with your son, have to move to the pavement, but yes.
Totally.
So a couple of our listeners wanted to know about how the coronavirus has impacted your life from kind of all aspects. You touched on your son's home, your wife's working from home, you're figuring out how two people can work from home with a child. How has it impacted your training, races canceled, kind of your plan when there is not a plan or not a race to train for?
Definitely. I was very happy that I got in this treadmill thing at the beginning of the year, and it was like almost kind of funny because now the treadmill records have become a thing. So there's just like way more of them happening now because of this thing. So I sort of felt like, okay, I jumped on that wave before this thing hit. So it's interesting because I'm a person that I really, really enjoy the daily grind and just that commitment to training and making myself better. And so for me, I haven't been like sad that races have been gotten canceled. I've kind of been like, okay, it'd be nice to know when they'll come back, but really nobody knows. Nobody knows if it's going to be in the fall or if it's going to be later. So right now, I've found motivation in my daily training and in looking at some of those maybe personal like records that I was thinking about going. So there's a few cool ones here. There's one around Mount Hood that's about 40 miles that has the fastest known time. There's the Mount Rainier Wonderland Trail that has that's about 90 miles, I think, and it's a pretty rugged like burly run. So I've been looking at like what stuff is motivating for this summer because it doesn't look like there's going to be any races, and so that's helped me. It's helped me that um, the treadmill thing has kind of become a thing. So I've considered maybe trying to do something that scares me on a treadmill, like I just saw Zach Bitter broke the 100-mile one, the record for that, and I had told myself like maybe it'd be fun to just go after that because I just don't feel like I'm good at the 100 yet, and just it just scares me enough that it sounds awesome. So I have some experience in running on a treadmill now, so that at least I feel like I'm starting with that. So I think the coronavirus it's hard because it leaves us in a place where there's a lot of unknown and there's just a lot of these questions, and as I'm sure everyone has experienced, we'll get a set of rules one week and then the next week it changes, then the following week it changes again. And so I think it's a good time. The approach that I've had is just focusing on this is what I can do, and right now I can still run. Right now I can still put in the daily work, and the run is a time that I can be out of the house and I can feel refreshed. And so I'm super grateful that I am a trail runner. Like I feel like I am more grateful of that right now than I've ever been, and I'm just incredibly happy that running is so simple. That right now it's allowed, and that it's actually advised for people to go out on a run. So I guess even though it's been hard, it's given me a lot of appreciation for what we do.
Yeah, running is one of the few things on your own that's not canceled, and it can kind of keep a sense of normalcy and a little bit of a schedule to your day right now.
Absolutely.
You talked a bit about your treadmill world record. We have somebody asking, and you then talked about wanting to do 100 miles on the treadmill, which sounds awful to most of us. So we have someone asking you, what are your tips for running for a really long time on the treadmill?
Yes, I would, if you're planning to go for a fast time, I would definitely put in a couple of long runs on a treadmill. But if you're just doing it for training, I would really recommend some good podcasts and just getting some good music. Time on the treadmill goes by so much slower, but you'll find that after a few runs, it does get easier. So it does start to become more comfortable, and you're able to find some of that joy in that small little space. Because I think that's the difficult part, is you're just in this tiny little space, but it gets better. And so sticking with it is part of it. Listening to podcasts. If you're lucky that you have a little screen or something, I would recommend a good film. But the thing that kept me going for the mental aspect of it is that I think it's very, very good mental training. And I think a lot of guys have found that once you're out on the trails again after a long run on the treadmill, it feels so much easier. You're just like mentally super strong because the trail is so much more fun. So that was a motivation for me. It was like I basically saw it as mental training. Yeah.
Yes, and you have to find a way to distract yourself because the treadmill is so much more difficult.
For sure.
Can you talk a little bit about your treadmill world record, kind of what your training was going up to that attempt, and kind of how you hydrated and fueled while running that fast on a treadmill in front of an audience, and what was going through your head?
Yeah, I had kind of dreamed of it for about 6 months, and I was actually waiting for it to be winter because I was like, there's no way I want to run on a treadmill when I can be running outside, right? So I dreamed it up for a while, and what really helped me commit to it was actually not the record itself, because personally I kind of was like, okay, I know a lot of the really, really top best guys haven't run on the treadmill, and so I know that it's like a softer record. And so for me, it wasn't really about the record, but when I kept dreaming about bringing an event to the kids I work with in the high school, I was like, this is the only way to do it, because I was like, either I do a treadmill and bring it in the middle of the gym, or I do laps on a track. And even the laps on the track would be a little bit tricky, because if the weather's bad, you got to keep like people sitting out on the bleachers. So I was like, the safest thing is a treadmill inside of a gym. And so once I committed to that and I visualized that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to get used to making this tiny little space comfortable, and I'm gonna have to get used to like that speed. And so I actually did like 2 runs roughly at about 17 to 20 miles. So I was trying to do about 2/3 of what it was going to take for the record. And one of those runs, I alternated between 1 mile that was about 6:15, 6:20, and the next mile was about 5:15, 5:20. So it was like just alternating slower than record pace and then faster than record pace. And just, I was actually purposely trying to get myself in an off rhythm to make my body tired, because I knew that on record day I was gonna have to run like 5:46 per mile and just try to cruise at that pace. And so Those type of workouts gave me the confidence and just the perspective that I needed, because I'm actually a person that draws a lot of energy internally, and so I was a little bit worried about the pressure of having all these kids in a gym, and I was like, I need to make sure I don't get distracted by that, and I just stay very focused on what I'm doing. So I prepared myself mentally for that. I put myself in that last hour where I knew it was going to get hard, and I told myself, like, don't draw from the crowd until maybe the last 15, 20 minutes, because that's when you can kind of get away with it. I was like, early on, you've just gotta reserve. You gotta keep the heart rate really low, and you gotta keep on the nutrition. So luckily it all worked. I was a little nervous. The gym that we did it in had no AC, so that was a little bit like, okay. I also, from talking to like the janitors and stuff, they were like, we have had power cut out at times, and so you're like, it's kind of like in the mercy of whatever happens, right? um, yeah, and then the other aspect, like, I actually haven't shared much, but we did the record at, like, it's 2,500 feet elevation, and even though it doesn't seem like a lot, like, it does end up wearing on you. So, like, Bend is about 3,500. So ideally, like, for this thing to go as fast as you can, you want to go sea level, but that was going to, like, ruin the motivation of doing it, and so I just trusted that we could still pull it off there, and I do want to say, though, that my record got broken. So about 6 weeks after, a guy in Germany did really well, and then a guy in Switzerland about a month after him broke his, and so you guys should be on the lookout, because there's an attempt is gonna happen June 6th. I actually got invited to it, so I'm trying to figure out if I'm gonna do it. But it's gonna be a few guys, like, duking it out on the treadmill. So it could be the only amusing thing to watch right now.
Yeah. Like you said, we can't have races, so everyone's going after treadmill world records, longest time on a treadmill, all sorts of new types of race challenges.
Absolutely.
We'll have to go back to Davis at sea level and try another world record treadmill attempt.
I know. I've been looking at, like, when I do crazy stuff like this that's not in a race, I'm like, I might as well do them in places that are very meaningful to me, because there'll be more motivation there. So I've been looking at, okay, if I commit to this, it's about a little less than 3 weeks, so it's pretty close. I would want to do it somewhere where there's a lot of oxygen and just a lot of meaning behind it. Yeah.
What do you see as your greatest accomplishment, and why?
I think that the race that I'm the most proud of is probably when I finished sixth at the Trail Ultra Running World Championships. So it's the IAU World Champs. That race, I don't know what happened, but, like, for a couple years in a row, I always nailed that race, and it was just, like, a really good day for me. And I think that day, it meant a lot to me, because the year before, I was kind of like the surprise top U.S. runner, and so it was expected that other guys would be in front, and which is fine with me. But, like, it was, like, kind of shocking, and I was like, wow. I surprised myself, and so that year, it was like, okay, well, Mario was top U.S. guy the year before, and it was like a little bit more pressure, and I was like, well, there's no way that I'm gonna beat some of the guys that we had on the team, and it was just like, I was just like, I just want to do my best, and I want to help the team as much as I can, And so I went in with that perspective, and it ended up being super meaningful to me because in the end, I ended up being sixth and the top US guy again. And our team did super well. And so it was like, it was sort of this lesson for me of, you know what, you can run just as well and you can get the best out of yourself even when you're not like driven for your own like purpose, right? When you're thinking of a team. And so that is something that I journaled a ton on because I always thought it would take a little bit of your own like competitiveness and your own fire if you kind of just like you're just trying to focus on others around you. But really that day I got every ounce of me. I really got as much as I could out of my body, and so it was exciting. Like I honestly never expected to run that well at a world championship. And when I saw the guys, like all these guys that I know, like guys that I follow, and it's just like, how am I in the mix? It was sort of this weird like like in my head I'm just like, what the heck? I was like, I'm running with this guy named Ludo and he's won Ultra Trail Mont Blanc. Like, why am I running with him? And it was just sort of this like dream for me that I'll always remember. And it's always just going to have a whole, like a special place in my heart because, we brought home a medal and I know my motivation was good. And so I think that stuff means the most in the end. It's like the whole like story behind the race that's really what brings it out. It's not the result, but it's like what went into it, what commitment went into it. And so I'm happy like that and the record on the treadmill was just from the kids. That was like something that will always be very special too for me.
Can you talk a little bit about what your treadmill world record was done for? You raised money for the school. I don't think anyone listening knows kind of the details behind that.
Yes, it was super cool. I work in a school that has 1/3 Hispanic, 1/3 Native American, and 1/3 white, and it's a place with really awesome diversity. But it's a school with, it doesn't have a lot of great resources, and so I've been out there helping coach, and I've been out there running some like clubs for the youth. And so what ended up happening when I planned this was like, okay, how do we find a way to actually give back to them, like to give them something that will help. And so what we did was we got a Brooks running grant, which is called the Booster Club. So that gives $12,400 worth of running gear to the youth, and it does $2,000 worth of cash, and then we raised another $2,000 just for the Madras athletics, and then I raised another $6,000 for the nonprofit like youth club that I run. So it was a combination of like it ended up being a decent amount that we felt like we accomplished something, and that it'll continually impact that community. So it's been super cool to see like just the kids getting new shoes or getting like shirts and shorts and being able to go out on a run even right now. Like I was a little bummed because I was like, I was picturing that we would be celebrating when we're handing out all this gear, and yet I think that right now it's actually more needed because the kids want to get out of the house and they want to have an excuse to go out, and so it's been cool. I actually was very happy with what came out of it.
Yeah, it was not just a world record attempt. You were helping out your community, and that's awesome.
Definitely.
Uh, we have somebody asking a question for you. Do you see trail running becoming an Olympic sport? And if so, what distance?
I think it will. I think that it'll be mountain running, and I have a gut feeling it'll be something more like in the marathon range. That's my guess. Maybe 50K. I would love it for it to be longer, but they're really pushing on the mountain running side to get it into the Olympics, and I think it's going to be at least, my guess is at least 8 more years. So we'll see if I still can try to qualify, but I'll probably be too old.
You'll still be running.
Yeah.
Fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
What has been the hardest thing for you to navigate in your career?
Yeah, I actually had a few episodes of like not knowing I had anemia, and I just kind of broke my body down a little too much, and I was just was low energy and just did not feel good. And actually, my first one was in Davis, so I didn't realize the first couple of years there that I jumped into like way more training than I was used to, and my body just hadn't caught up. It hadn't developed. So that was pretty difficult. I've had a few kind of coaches early on that I didn't feel like they believed in me, so that was pretty hard. But honestly, I would say that really like one injury that I had that was kind of a confusing one. I had an ankle bone in my left ankle. I actually have a surgery from it. There's a little bone called the osteogonum that apparently 10% of the population has, and mine broke because I really run on my toes a lot, and so I just like broke it, and it was just floating around in my ankle for about 8 months before I actually found out what it was. And I thought it was like a tendon or something, and so I was kind of getting frustrated, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And it was finally like I was able to get insurance, and I got an X-ray, and it was like, oh, actually, this is a pretty easy fix. We just have to like pull it out and clean up that area, and you're good to go. So so those months leading up to that was pretty frustrating, pretty hard. But luckily, it was a quick solution, and honestly, since then, I've been pretty injury free. Like I've had few nicks here and there, but nothing that has kept me from running. So yeah.
Well, that bone sounds very painful. Did you run with that, and was it painful when it was floating around for 8 months?
It was painful. I was running very low mileage, and I still would run, but it was sort of like this, like I would think it was better, and then I would go out for a run and push, and then it would just make it bad again. And I kept thinking again that it was tendonitis, and so I was so grateful when I was like, okay, it's an easy fix, and it was a very fast like surgery. They just like pull it out, cut out in that area, and then I had a little like cast on for a few weeks, and that was it. But yeah, it was very painful.
I bet you were relieved when you figured out what it was.
Oh, big time. Because you start doubting like if your body works normally anymore, and you start like kind of not believing in your ability to heal, and so those things are hard. They're hard for anyone that's in an injury, having that patience to believe and to have faith that it's going to get better. It's a struggle.
Yeah. Well, Mario, I know we're getting to the end of our time, so if anyone has other questions, make sure you put them in the chat box. I've been trying to monitor them. If we have time at the end, Greg wants to hear some college stories about us. The good days at Davis. A good question to end on that somebody else had earlier is, if you could share one message with us, what would it be?
Yeah, my advice is to really enjoy the moments that you're out trail running, because I just think there's so much for you to discover on the trails that it's free. It's like anyone can receive it, and I think that that is some of the most valuable stuff in life that we can take. Is just that we don't have to be paying for a trail run. I mean, we have to pay for some shoes, but once we get out there, it's all free. You know, the nature, like the connections, the time with people, all of that is free. And I know that the coronavirus, I think, has really taught us that you know, community is important. It's an important piece to everyone's life. And so I think trail running, there's nothing better. So I hope that some of you that maybe are not trail runners yet, I'm like, I hope you become trail runners after this. And the ones that are, I'm like, stick with it forever, because I mean, how lucky are we? Like, it's one of the few sports that it's just, we just get out and go outside and enjoy and clear our mind and clear our spirits. I tell people that it's amazing how much more rested like I feel after I'm out on a mountain. So yeah, my advice is that there's so much to learn. There's so much to take in and see. You know, look at what progress does to you, you know, to your life. Look at how it satisfies you, and it doesn't matter what pace we run. Like I get inspired by all paces. Like I see young kids running that they're not super talented, but you see them pushing and, you know, digging deep and seeing what they can do, and that is inspiring. And I'll see older people on the trails, and I'm just like that. I just love it. I just think everyone should be a runner. So I just want to say, keep going, guys, and keep looking for those just free therapy sessions out on trail. Yeah.
And your message that everyone should be a trail runner is exactly the message that this group shares.
That's awesome. So cool.
All right. Well, it has not kicked us off yet. Does anyone have other questions for Mario? If not, I do have one or two others that were shared ahead of time. No? Okay. Do you have time still, Mario? I know you have a very busy schedule.
Yeah, okay. I could stay another 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody had asked, what is the most influential book for you? It does not have to be running related.
Oh, wow. Well, I will say probably for me, the one that I've read the most has been like the Bible. So scripture has been the one that I spend the most time in. A regular book, there's a book that my cousin shared when I was really young. It's called Rain of Gold. And it's a story on the journey that two immigrants took from Mexico into the U.S. and just how their paths collided and they ended up getting married. But the reason that that book impacted me a lot early on is because it gave me a perspective of my parents' lives. Like it really, really taught me a lot about their journey, and that stuck with me because I think, you know, we can pass down stories, but sometimes I don't know if people are sometimes afraid to share like depth or just like the details of a story. But I hadn't heard like everything, like all the struggles that they'd gone through, and so that book really opened my eyes and really impacted me. And so that is one of my favorite books still today. Yeah.
Well, I have, I think, a similar background to you, and my parents do the same thing. You're never old enough to hear the real struggles from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm the baby of the family, not old enough to hear the real truth.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the last question I have is, you travel to a lot of different places for running. What is your favorite place that you've been to for running, racing, training?
Wow, this is a super hard question.
More than one.
I know this is a very tough one. I'm gonna go with Slovenia, and it's close. Like, but I actually I was not expecting Slovenia to be as magical as it was, and we had a shorter mountain running world championship there in close to Lake Bled, and I could not believe this place. Like, you get to this lake and it looks like a movie. Like, there's just like the water is like turquoise, and then there's like castles all around, and I was just like, this is so incredible. There's everything that I think is just so beautiful in one place, and the mountains were very steep, technical, and so I think because I'd never heard of it, it just shocked me. Like, I've been to, Chamonix for UTMB, but I just would say that Slovenia, it was a very awesome 1 week like vacation, and I felt incredibly rested and connected, and I would go back there. I would definitely check out some more and see some more summits.
Well, I have not been to Slovenia, but I have been to Chamonix, and if it is prettier than Chamonix, it must be awesome.
They're both beautiful.
Yeah, Chamonix reminds me of a European version of Lake Tahoe. It was kind of my take on it.
Totally. Yeah, and stuff is so much steeper there. It's unfair.
Yes.
It's just like straight up.
Yeah. Well, Mario, I want to thank you so much for your time and doing this for us. We are so appreciative of this. I hope everyone got a lot out of this. I know it's getting close to the end of the hour, and we want to be respectful of your time. But thank you. If we can get you to come out to South Dakota at some point, we'll make that happen when it's allowed again.
Awesome. I've never been to South Dakota, so I really hope to visit sometime. That is one of the states that I definitely still need to go to.
Well, yeah. There are some shorter ultras on our side of the state and longer on the other, and we're right on the border with Minnesota and Iowa, not too far from Nebraska. So there are a lot of ultras around here. And if you want to get crazy and run an ultra in the snow in our winters, there is an ultra here in December that a lot of people run. And a lot goes out and volunteers. So yeah, you can on your schedule.
That's awesome. I do really want to go ice fishing. It's like at the top of my list. So so somebody, if any of you go ice fishing, I'm actually very serious about this. I need to go ice fishing.
It's not for you, and I think the outdoor campus does free lessons at some of their activities. I may be off on that, but they have a pond there right in town, and they do all sorts of outdoor activities year-round: snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, kayaking, fishing, everything. So I they do ice fishing in the winter too. I may be off on that, but we'll find someone to take you ice fishing.
Excellent. I can't wait. Well, on my part, I just want to say thank you guys. I feel like Eva did such a good job. You said I think you hadn't done this before, so great job. Great job, Nathan. Great job, everyone. I've enjoyed this time, and hopefully I'll see you guys out on the trails too. So if I ever run into you on a trail, please say hi if we're in the same race. Okay?
Yes, they will. I'm sure our running group is very friendly. So yes, we'll make sure we see you out there.
Excellent.
Well, thank you, Mario. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Lots of members are saying thank you to you as well in the chat box. So thank you. We'll let you get back to your evening since you basically ended work and then came to join us. So thank you for your time, and we'll let you go spend time with your family.
All right, you guys, take care. Blessings.
Thank you.